Have you ever met someone who is pro-life but didn't want to be called by that label? It happened to us. Come debrief with us. Hi, I'm your host, Maggie, and today I'm joined by Seth and Ethan. Ethan, would you give us an outreach highlight?
Sure. I was at a high school outreach, and we had students walking past us. We were asking what do they think about abortion. And I had this one kid who walked by me, and he was like, "Oh, I hate abortion. I'm against abortion." I was like, "That's great." And he stuck around to talk to me, and I told him that 2,300 babies die from abortion every day. He was like, "That's horrible." And then I told him, and that 1/3 of our generation is missing, that you and I had a 1 in 3 chance of dying. And that blew his mind. His jaw dropped. And he was like, no way. He couldn't believe it. And it was really cool to be able to see a reaction like that, because I hadn't seen someone be so shocked, as we all should be, by the sheer volume of abortion that happens in America.
Yeah, so, struck by the magnitude of it.
Yes.
That's really
that is kind of interesting. Yeah, that is encouraging, right? And it should strike us. People always say, like, large numbers of statistic, a single death is a tragedy, and that's often true. I think a lot of people are more moved by the picture of a baby who's killed than by knowing that over 2,000 die every day. But when you do really understand that's over 2,000 human beings just like us, and like you said, I like the way you phrased that, we had a 1 in 3 chance of dying. That's powerful.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, really encouraging that there are people out there who are not like us, born and raised this way, but out in the world who are heartbroken by that.
Yeah.
That's good. So our clip today is about a man who, another of our interns, our intern Zane from this past summer.
Zane.
He talked to this man in, I think this was Michigan? Downtown somewhere? Oh, I'm pretty sure. Well, anywho, it was fronting nationwide. Wherever that is.
That's here.
That's here. Okay. Oh, never mind.
You're still from out of town, Maggie. So it's okay.
Yeah. I saw the in the video, it looked like someplace in Michigan. Anyway.
I'm not sure many listeners would be happy with you forgetting Ohio, Michigan, mixing those up, right?
Well, it reminded me of that place that we've been in Detroit. Well, anywho.
Yeah.
So I want to be careful that we're not like saying negative things, because not that we can't say negative things about our own side. But anyway, this guy is pro-life. But what's interesting is that he didn't want to be called pro-life.
Mm-hmm.
So
I'm intrigued to hear why, because honestly, I find the label not always super helpful either. So I have an open mind about this conversation. I'm intrigued to hear it.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting conversation to have. So we'll get into that. But yeah, let's hear the clip.
We're trying to change people's minds about abortion.
Oh.
Mm-hmm.
You don't need to change his mind.
You pro-life already?
Huh?
You pro-life?
Nah, man. I wouldn't say I'm pro-life. That's not a term that I tell people to call me.
Okay.
I just believe in babies being born.
Right. Yeah. So essentially the same thing. So yeah.
You know what I'm saying? They always got to put a label on something.
Right. Yeah.
It's always got to be you're either this or that. Why can't we just believe that babies should be born?
Yeah. You would think
They've
that
been
we would
born
all
for
believe
millions of
that.
years. Like, what's the issue?
Yeah.
Yeah, so just to clarify, there's one part that you maybe couldn't hear very well, because there were two guys in this clip, but one of them was the main one talking. But at one point, the other guy who couldn't hear, he was like, you don't need to change his mind. So he was saying, like, he's already pro-life.
Oh, I thought he was talking about himself. Okay.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so that was a little hard to hear. But this was interesting because the guy that is the main one talking in this clip, he at first says, does he say, I'm not pro-life, or I don't want to be called pro-life? So
yeah,
you think
not
that,
pro-life.
Yeah, so you think he's like pro-abortion,
right?
But he is pro-life, but he doesn't like the label, which is interesting.
So can we talk about the labels?
Yeah, do you think that labels are helpful or unhelpful? Do you think there's a place for them? What do you think?
Can we still call Ethan the new guy? I'm not sure we can anymore, right? Now that's season 3, but I'm curious what you would say, being the newest.
Yeah. I think labels have their place, and I do like them, but I also think they can hurt more than help sometimes, and can breed sectarianism. I like labels, though, for pro-life, pro-death, pro-choice, because I think it's a good dividing line.
Yeah, like we immediately know what someone means when they say pro-life.
Right. And you always want to clarify with people, but if someone says, yes, I'm pro-life, you're like, okay, I have a general understanding of what I think they believe in when someone says I'm pro-choice. Again, I have a general understanding of what they mean when they say that. And so I think that can be helpful to at least starting the conversation, just to get a footing for like, okay, where is this person at? Where am I at? So I think they can be helpful in that sense.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, I don't think they're without merit, right? I mean, these things are generally understood in our culture as pro-life means you're against abortion. Pro-choice means you're for abortion being legal, right? So I think they do have the utility, like you say. My concern with them is just that I think they're not super descriptive, right? Like when I say I'm pro-life, what life are you in support of?
Yeah.
And people always say, well, you're pro-life, well, you're killing bugs right now, you eat meat. Like that's not relevant to the conversation. So I just find it to be a bit incomplete. And the same with pro-choice. What choice are you in favor of, right? So I prefer, I know that this is not always a big agreement with maybe some people who hold our same position, but I prefer anti-abortion, pro-abortion, because we're just a little more honest. But I agree with you. I'm not going to say the labels are meaningless.
Right.
I do think it's interesting when you look at some surveys, though, people will say, yeah, I'm pro-life. But then you say, okay, so do you support abortion in the first trimester, second trimester, third trimester? And someone who says, I'm pro-life will support abortion in the first trimester. Yeah. Well, okay, clearly there's an inconsistency there, right? So what I loved about this conversation, Maggie brought us to, is that it raises that topic of labels are not meaningless, but we have to just understand them. And I don't think we always understand them the same way.
Yeah, You're right about them not being complete, which is why it's an interesting conversation. But I mean, I think that's the case with most labels.
You're right.
So, I mean,
yeah, you don't just dispense with them. You just got to make sure that we are using, well, we talked before about how we misunderstand words, right? Labels can be misunderstood. They just need to be defined.
Yeah. So I'm curious, this is just an opinion question. Do y'all think that he would have approved of the term anti-abortion? Do you think he would have liked it better or worse or what?
I don't know. I think he probably wouldn't have liked it. The feeling I got from him talking to Zane was he was trying to stay away from maybe how controversial abortion was. I think by just saying, I just believe in babies being born, And so I think he was trying to distance himself from how divisive abortion can be. So I don't think he would like the term anti-abortion, because that's even more divisive than just pro-life is. That's the feeling I got. I could be totally off base though. So
that could totally be. I think that what you're right about Ethan, or many things, but you were pointing to, I think his problem was the partisanness of this, right? So he said they're always got to put a label on us, right? So he's upset about that. I think that what we've seen is over the past half a century, the pro-life side has become very much united with the Republican Party, right? And the pro-abortion side with the Democratic Party. And so I think he's probably avoiding this overly politicized thing,
the political
right?
association.
He's trying to get beyond that. What do you think about killing babies? That's where I think all of us would agree, right? We don't care what party you support is not the most important thing. At the end of the day, we're asking, what do you think about killing babies? Right. Now that has political ramifications. But I think you're right, Ethan, that he's just, it's maybe not even the term pro-life that bothers him. It's the whole slapping labels on things and pushing people into tribes and keeping them from interacting, which is what happens in social media and political games so often. He's just trying to get beyond that. And I respect that. And that's why, Maggie, I think your point, we don't want to be overly critical of him, because he might, even though maybe we think the term pro-life still has value and shouldn't be dispensed with, he's pointing to a real problem, and that is the tribalization of America and everyone in their groups and not interacting, and that's silly. What matters less than how you define yourself is, what do you think about killing babies? Is it right or wrong? Right?
Yeah. So I want to talk about a little bit more about what he said, but first, to continue with what we were just talking about, do you think there's a better time? I know that you said you prefer anti-abortion, and so do I, actually. I don't know about you, Ethan.
I prefer it too.
Okay, yeah, I think it gets more to the point what we're talking about. But do you think there's a time to use pro-life versus anti-abortion, and how do you know when to use one versus the other?
I do think there is a time, right, a setting. So we all tailor our language based upon who we're talking to, right? So we turn the microphones on, right? So we know we're addressing not just ourselves, but audience. And we will change some things, maybe just some jargon in the creative office we're not going to use on the podcast. So it's normal to adjust your language to the setting. And certainly there are times I think pro-life might be again, I'm thinking about what audience am I speaking to on a college campus. When I say pro-life, I think most secular students don't understand that as well, especially because you have some leading pro-abortion people saying, I'm pro-life because I'm for the mother's life. They don't, okay, so we're confusing.
Right.
I will be honest with you, I am anti-abortion. I think it's just faster and easier with them.
Yeah.
With people who are already on my side, I think the term pro-life is more understood, so I will tend to use that more. So I adjust based on who I'm talking to. What about you guys?
I think I do the same.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because, like I said at the beginning, you immediately know what someone means when they say pro-life. I think there's a large group of people, maybe not large, I don't know. There's a significant amount of people who want to change what it means to mean either like people against us who say that we're being hypocritical when we're not talking about all forms of life. But there's also like Christians who want it to mean womb to tomb. And we're talking about specifically preborn humans.
Yes.
And we should be caring for people womb to tomb, of course. But I don't think that the term needs to mean that.
Mm-hmm.
I remember when I was doing an internship with the Center for Bioethical Reform, this was something we talked about. And there's a debate between, I think it was Scott Klusendorf, and I don't remember who he debated, but one of his things is that he wants the term to remain just talking about preborn humans. So I don't quite remember where I was going with that.
Okay, well, Maggie, what that made me think of is I think you're right that the term is generally understood. You're right, but still we sometimes have to clarify that yes, we are in favor of all human lives womb to tomb, but it can be just so quickly misunderstood. So I think that your point is really important, that we just have to identify when do you need to add definition and when is it commonly understood, because most people we talk to probably get it. And I am not advocating for dispensing with the term pro-life. I think it is meaningful. I just think sometimes it might be misunderstood.
Yeah. Well, to get into something else that he was saying, after he said the part about they're just putting labels on us all the time and I don't want to be called pro-life, he said that, I just want babies to be born. I think that's an interesting point because, I mean, the pro-life message really is that simple, that we believe that babies have the right to not be killed. I think that's the point. I guess my point is, like, it's not just that we think babies should be born. We want that, but if babies are not born, that's not always wrong because miscarriage, things like that. Right. So I guess there's like three options. In the case of abortion, they're intentionally born dead. In the case of miscarriage, they're born dead, but through no fault of anyone involved. And then the third option, ideally, they're born alive and well, alive and healthy.
You're right. I think this is a point I was making a lot last fall on campus with people who were saying, you're just pro-birth. And I would say, well, actually, every person is literally pro-birth because abortion, you're giving birth, as you just said, Maggie, but to a dead baby that you killed, right? Yeah. But the baby has to come out. You leave baby inside mom, she will get sepsis and die. So we all are pro-birth. The question is, are we pro-killing before birth or letting be born alive, right? That's the real question. No one is against birth. So but I think your point is that his response that I just want babies to be born is, yes, that's true. But again, we need a little more definition on this, right? That we are not saying every child must be born alive because it's not in our control. What is in our control is whether we allow people to purposefully kill babies before they're born.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's what I was trying to get at. Like, while we agree that we want babies to be born alive, like, why would we not put it that way? Because we can't
it's
make
not in our
every
power.
Baby be born alive. Some are going to die naturally before they're born alive.
I had a thought about this conversation, actually about Zane. I was so impressed with how he handled this conversation. Not that it didn't seem like a super difficult conversation, just different terms. I don't like to use this label to describe what I believe. But something I really admire about Zane, I think that was in this clip, is just how disarmingly calm he is when he's talking to people. As far as even like this, he didn't get defensive at all or just like, oh, why didn't you call yourself pro-life or anything? He was just like kind of trying to understand where the guy was coming from. And for me, I really admire that because I know for myself, I am so intense. Anytime people can say anything and I'm just like, okay, analyze argument, provide answer, go, hammer home, go. And it's just, slam, take my apologetics and whack them across the head. And so I have to practice treating people like people and not math equations, which I think Zane does really well.
Yeah, I mean, this is part of the strategy, right? So trying to identify, you could argue about every single point with people, but does it really matter whether the guy likes the term pro-life or not? No, who cares, right? At the end of the day, he's right that what's more important than the label is what you believe. And you would have done it too, Ethan, but Zane so easily just identified that just effortlessly, like, okay, that's fine. Well, what do you mean? What do you think? And he built that common ground with him and got to what really matters. And so that's such a great point, I think, Ethan, that we have to, as defenders, apologists, whatever word you want to use, we've got to decide what is worth fighting about, what is worth debating on, what do we let go, what do we let slip, because we shouldn't latch on every single thing we could debate about with people.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, good point.
Maggie, when you have had these conversations now with people, though, is that hard for you to decide what am I going to really focus on, emphasize? Like this issue of the terms. Word debriefing now, is pro-life a good term or not? A good conversation to have, not really super important on the streets, depending on how the conversation goes. So how have you found, or do you find it hard to identify where am I going to really throw my effort in a conversation? Is that hard?
Occasionally, sometimes a lot of times people will just, spew a bunch of stuff, pro-abortion people especially. And then I just, I want to respond to every little thing. But so, sometimes it is hard for me to not respond to some things. So sometimes I'll throw in I'll be like, well, about this thing that you said, I actually believe this, but to respond to this other thing that you said, da-da-da. So
you offer maybe a short summary, rebuttal of some kind, but you don't focus on that.
Yeah.
That way, if they want to go further, they could. You kind of gave a little idea, but then you're getting back to the heart of the matter.
Yeah. Sometimes I feel like I do talk a little too much and I might lose people a little bit. But yeah, you want to basically just pick the main thing or the most important thing that they're saying.
And that's back to Zane in this clip. There's not a lot of Zane in it, right?
Yeah.
Which is really cool. A lot of people who are new to pro-life outreach, I think, have a hard time not talking a lot, right? If you watch sometimes our GoPro footage, it can be, we overspoke there. We should let the person talk more. Yep. So Zane did a good job with that as well.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, I just want to bring it back to this point that the pro-life message really is that simple. I said this earlier, that we believe that babies have the right not to be killed.
I think you're right. So the flip side, though, is what is the pro-choice side, right? So our side is right. We think they have a right not to be killed. Pro-choice, so what is their summary statement? They think that parents have a right to kill their children, right? It really is that simple. So behind the labels are two choices. Should parents have the right or not to intentionally kill their innocent children? Really simple. Don't get confused by labels, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's exactly right.
And that's why I think even pro-choice kind of fails as a label too, right? People say, well, pro-life, what life are you in favor of? I mean, but they're not pro-all choices. They're really only in favor of one choice.
Yeah. Well, that's say, what we were talking about. Labels are insufficient.
Right, they're
but
helpful.
We know what they mean.
Yeah, so you're exactly right. That's the thing. You can respond by saying, well, let's never use pro-life, pro-choice. That's silly too, right? They are helpful terms as long as we have a common definition of them.
Yeah.
As definitions change, that's where problems are in play, right? But you're exactly right, Maggie. They are helpful. But I just find it so funny that people who say I'm pro-choice, they're seldom advocating for choices other than abortion. That's what they're in favor of.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they are pro one choice.
And that is killing.
In fact, I remember, I don't know if this was, I think it was with CBR.
Mm-hmm.
I get mixed up. But one time we were doing outreach. We were traveling on there during the summer one time. And we saw a sticker on a car that said, Jesus is pro-choice. And we were so and it was it had small words. We had to get up close to read it. And it was not talking about abortion. It was
really?
And it was
really?
The message of it was something we would agree with.
Well, that's what they were just clickbait.
So confusing. Yeah, exactly. It's they want people to look at it and read it.
Interesting.
But it was confusing because we all have an idea of what pro-choice means. So.
Right.
That was funny.
Yeah.
But to summarize, if you hear someone saying something like this, they don't want to be called by this label, what's going to be your response?
I want to just channel Zane, right, and say, okay, so, that's fine. Let's set this label aside. So what do you think about purposefully killing innocent people? Is that right or wrong, regardless of label? That's what I want to do.
I'm on the exact same page. Just, okay, you don't want a label? Throw labels out the window. Yeah. What do you think about murdering babies? And go from there.
Good. All right, well, everyone, if you would please leave us a 5-star review, that would be super duper helpful. Thanks so much for following along in this conversation, and thank you for debriefing with us.